Hi, so today we're going to be looking at Ozymandias in a bit more detail and a bit more depth. Just a quick reminder before we go anywhere at all, we're just remembering that Shelley is a romantic and he loves nature and he loves emotion and he loves experience and he thinks those are really, really important. What he doesn't like, though, is the monarchy, the kings and queens and the control that they have over society, the church and the control that has over society and people's souls, or what they think has control over their soul, or industrialization and factories. And he has a real problem with tyrants and this idea of control. And so we looked at Ozymandias last lesson and we've read through it. So we're going to pick out some of the meatiest quotes to go into a bit more depth with now. And so the first two we have here. So we have this image of this Egyptian king's head, half sunk and shattered, lying in the desert, okay, in the huge emptiness of the desert. And we have this image of it being half sunk. So we can see some of it, but the rest of it is underneath the sand. And I think what we have here with this verb sunk, and why I think it's so important, is that we have this sense of it disappearing. It's being sucked down back to the earth, where all of that rock and stone came from. It's not stood up tall, it's not proud, it's not showing the glory of Ozymandias. It's shattered, it's sunk, it's disappearing, and maybe even drowning in the sand. And we have this image then here of kind of pain and suffering, the suffering of his ego, and the suffering of humans who think that they have power over nature. And then from here, I guess, what we have is this idea that it's being pulled down, disappearing, and it's almost consumed, almost eaten up by the earth and by time, as if it's being eaten in order to be used for some other thing. And then what we really understand from this is it reinforces the idea that humans are vulnerable and that human power is ephemeral. We don't last for a long time. Our power does not last for a long time. Okay. We are small. Our lives are short. We then have this other lovely phrase, a shattered visage. And if you're not sure, visage or visage means face in French. So we're talking about a shattered, destroyed face here. And this verb shattered kind of shows us this, well, gives us this sense of destruction, or shattered dreams. Whatever was ordered now is now turned to chaos. Now, why I think this idea of the visage is so important is it links to this idea of the ego. So your face is your focus. The focus of the ego, the thing that he wants to celebrate, that Ozymandias wants to celebrate. He wants, on the very exterior, he wants to show pride and greatness And he wants to be immortal. He wants everyone to see him lasting forever. He wants immortalization. And he thinks that this huge statue of him will bring him that everlasting life, eternal power and immortalization. But it's shattered. It's destroyed. It is obliterated. And this idea that it is shattered, when we bring those two things together, okay, we have this obliteration of the self. So it's unrecognizable and obliterated. His memory is almost obliterated. And what we see here is this sense of humans, but especially tyrants, really being insignificant. Their memory is annihilated. And what we see here is that it is not humans that are powerful, but nature. Time may be intangible, but it is far more powerful than man or tyrants, and it destroys empires. So time and nature can seem intangible, but they are powerful. And it's almost like nature is taking its revenge. And it destroys empires, and it destroys statues, and it destroys all of those things that we think we can control, but we can't. Okay, so that's a really nice way to start. There's a lot of interesting things to say about that. And I think next thing is getting into this idea of, right, nature's really powerful. But who is he saying, or what type of people is nature particularly working against? And why does he want to give us this particular message anyway? So then we have a look at the face of the statue that is shattered on the floor. And we see this wrinkled lip. Having a look here in the image, we kind of see this sort of like malevolent displeasure or disrespect. When people curl their lip at you, you know that they don't respect you. So from here we get this sense of this interior malevolence. It's on the surface, it's on the exterior. And we know that it's disrespectful, but disrespectful to who? Disrespectful for the people that Ozymandias ruled over, his subjects. And it's almost as if he's also disgusted by them, disgusted by his population and his people. And he kind of treats them with contempt. And if you treat someone with contempt, you disrespect them. You see them as unimportant. And from here, this is a really clear comment, I think, by Shelley, that we're looking at the type of tyrant that is cruel, that is unloving, and is a bad ruler. And here we see those shadows of the people in his own world, George III and Napoleon, those people that he saw as tyrants that only cared about power and looked down contemptuously at the people that they were supposed to look after, they were supposed to rule. We see this again in Sneer of Cold Command, this idea that Ozymandias here, there's a sense of superiority. He feels superior to these people down here, the unimportant subjects. There's also a sense that he's sneering, possibly malevolent and immoral. He was a cruel king and a cruel ruler that treated his people badly, and it's written all over his face. Like emotions that are inside of him very much take place on the outside. And this idea of a cold command, we see this kind of uncaring coldness about him, heartless and power hungry. And what we get here is Shelley being really quite transgressive and subversive, challenging George III and Napoleon, two of the most powerful people on planet Earth. It's quite a big deal, and it's quite a brave thing to do. Even if he is using this as a metaphor, using Ozymandias as a metaphor for these people to explore these ideas of power, it's still pretty transgressive and subversive. The Romantics were really good at this, challenging things transgressively, questioning people in power. That's what they felt they needed to do as the unacknowledged legislators. Okay. Lastly, we have this final image of the desert, boundless and bare. And this kind of leaves us with an almost terrifying sense of nature's limitlessness. This huge, boundless place. And this idea of boundless being limitless. In contrast with us, who are mortal and our lives end, nature never ends. So it contrasts our mortality as humans. And it makes us feel really teeny tiny and really small. Humans are small. Our lives are transient. They pass the face of the earth. And eventually, no matter what monuments we erect or statues we have made of us, no one will remember us. So we're left with this sense of the vastness of nature. Vastness of nature. It's limited, it's limitless, contrasting with our mortality, and it makes us feel small and transient. And we see an almost dystopian image. This is almost the worst world imaginable. This huge empty space that makes us feel terrible and small and bleak and unimportant. Now this emptiness, everything being bare and empty, reminds us that everything is ephemeral. Life equals ephemeral. And our memories disappear. And it gives us this almost metaphysical fear of death. In fact, it's almost as if we're imprisoned by our mortality. But the big message here is that, like all of us, those tyrants are ephemeral. That tyranny is ephemeral and it does not last. Okay, thank you very much, and follow the next instruction from your teachers.